called Reno Tirakatini.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker.
Koe.
Te whānau a mokomoko, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou, nau mai hara mai ki te whare pāramata e takatū nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, it's a great pleasure for me to speak at the third reading of this bill. And sir, we've heard a lot about the background of this, which has brought about the passage of this legislation. And sir, the enactment of this bill and the apology given by this House to Mokomoko, as I mentioned in my second reading speech, it's proof of why it's important that we get things right and get things right the first time. Because the apology offered to the whānau of Mokomoko back in the 1990s was inadequate. And his family felt that the mana of their tupuna hadn't been fully redeemed. That's why this House has had to go back and re-legislate so as to restore the mana of Mokomoko. We now know how this great chief was wrongly accused and sent to prison. We know that he faced his accusers without fear, believing that the Pākehā law would find him an innocent man. When he was found guilty, he faced his impending death on the gallows with courage and a song in his heart. To our ancestors of olden times, mana was an important aspect to everyday life and a key to maintaining social order. To impugn that Mokomoko was the killer of Vulkner was a serious accusation. He was transported to jail in Auckland and there found guilty. He was hanged in Auckland jail and buried there. In the last reading, in the second reading of this bill, sir, I quoted Abraham Lincoln, who had this to say about mana. Character is like a tree and reputation like a shadow. The shadow is what we think of it, the tree is the real thing. His pepeha is to remind people that having character is a true blessing and that reputation is only what someone else thinks. The chief Mokomoko was hanged for a crime he didn't commit. Is there anything more rotten in life than that? Where was the justice for this man who was carted away in chains because of a false accusation that the rope used to hang Reverend Vulkner belonged to Mokomoko? Mr. Speaker, it is said that the first casualty of war is the truth. It's as true today as it was back in the 1860s as New Zealand faced its own internal conflicts. The truth in this case, sir, was that Mokomoko was an innocent man, wrongly accused, tried and hanged for the murder of Reverend Vulkner, and with his hanging, his family, whānau, faced the shame, the whakamā of their tupuna being called a murderer. For 147 years, Mokomoko's descendants shared their tupuna's shame. They faced accusation and ostracisation. They felt the burden and shame that their tupuna had. Mokomoko's descendants lost their mana. They lost their good character and reputation. But this is not the first time a bill has been enacted to restore the reputation of Mokomoko. There was one in the 90s, but it was flawed because it related to two of his confederates in Ngāti Awa. And an apology was later delivered in a bill, but it failed, the free pardon, but it failed to wholly redeem Mokomoko, instead making much of his two co-defendants who were in fact from, as I mentioned, another tribe, the Ngāti Awa. And so the family felt that their ancestor wasn't fully cleared and so came back to this House on what has been a very long journey to rectify what they saw as a continuing injustice. But this House is only as good as the research it's provided with, and back in the 90s, there wasn't a consultation that took place. The process that took place made poor law, and when the apology was first issued to the family of Mokomoko, it was inadequate, sir. And so this time around, we've made sure that we've got it right. And it has to be right, or the whānau Mokomoko will never believe the mahi that we do in this House is important work on behalf of all New Zealanders. Mr. Speaker, This third reading of the restoration of Mokomoko Bill for Mokomoko, as has been mentioned by many speakers today, comes in the wake of the passing of freedom fighter, activist, protester and former President of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. And sir, I draw no comparison, but they are men from different times and political motives. They do, however, share in having been poorly treated by the justice systems of their times. And at the end of the day, to be treated fairly and justly without being judged by one's skin colour and or race is what all human beings hope for. It is, after all, a basic human right. The whānau Mokomoko will finally receive the justice they have sought and fought for so long for. And it comes to them born on the cold winds and the chilly rains of mourning that have encircled the world these past few days. And in that way, that is unique to our culture. The whānau Mokomoko will be able to bookmark the passing of this bill with the historical significance of Mandela's passing. So I, for one, sir, extend my good wishes to the whānau Mokomoko, and in doing so I also include my own direct connections to the whānau Mokomoko through my grand-uncle, Uncle Joe Bull, or his proper name is Te One Apireda Mokomoko, and his father was Makarini Mokomoko. So there's a connection for me, and there's many Mokomoko whānau in the south, and so I extend my good wishes to all the whānau Mokomoko and say thank you for sticking to your kaupapa and for making sure that this House and the MPs within it are held accountable and we get the job done properly. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Mr. Speaker, tēnā koe, Mr.